All right, everybody. Welcome to Super Happy Dragon Lucky episode 0x27, and I don't know how many that actually is yet. I'm not good enough with my hex to do that in my head quickly. So today we're going to go over a few things. I thought we'd probably do some DIN trending stuff and then get straight into the agenda that's marked. As you can see, high up on this is that Tron actually got apparently a coronavirus relief grant. I don't know if it's the PPP, whatever it is. It's kind of maybe it's legitimate. I don't know, but it is questionable that $2 million going to them. I guess they have. I did look it up. They have like 60 U.S. employees, maybe. I'm not certain though. Next was Dragon TA on TradingView, which was interesting. I'm not good enough with TA, but there are a lot out there, and I'm always interested in how some of that works and seeing how it plays out. I'm really good at fundamentals, right? I'm really good at pulling stuff together and trying to figure out which things are most important, particularly for technology in the coming future. That's where I live, and so therefore I am always interested in TA. You can see this is absolutely true. A lot of things that have happened in the past couple of months should have probably happened 5-10 years ago. We have the internet. Why not test it more? Why not save on commercial real estate and do everything from home? Then we're starting to see more stuff pop up in the music layer, and there's a good community developing there that was totally outside of Dragonchain and even outside of crypto. A lot of these people are just coming in and realizing what's possible, and different angles on promoting their stuff, and I guess just talking about the various subjects, and then red pills, of course, obviously. So first up on the actual agenda, we have the coronavirus update, and so with this, there's a lot of really interesting stuff going on because it went very much from huge, very scary thing that the media over here weren't even covering. You'd have to go to 4chan because Twitter was even pulling down videos that were being posted straight out of China. And, it caught our attention pretty early. We were already moving towards a remote work environment, Dragonchain anyway. But when the first case happened about 20 minutes north of here, in Kirkland, that was interesting, kind of scary. Nobody knew what was going on, and then all the panic set in, and toilet paper disappeared, and I'm always kind of a red pill tinfoil hat guy anyway, so we were already prepped. I mean, I'm a little bit prepped up with never enough ammo, but at least we have food, and we had masks even from the Ebola outbreak that actually hit the U.S. a tiny bit, 4 years ago, right? It tends to be around election years for some reason. But either way, interesting stuff happening. Lots of things that are now, to me, bringing light about, what are the similarities between Bill Gates, Bezos, and Zuckerberg, and others. But just say those three, other than billionaire status, startup status. What else is common? So think about that for a little while. And how does it all tie into Bill Gates pushing what he's doing? So anyway, interesting stuff, and then we pull in murder suicide for a coronavirus researcher. I didn't have time to pull it up. I mean, there were even predictions of this. I wish they were on Eternal. I wish everybody knew about Eternal. Put the prediction on Eternal if somebody's going to get hit for something controversial or something that might go away, because it's at least provable. I mean, you can't really trust Jack at Twitter that he won't, first of all, just delete whatever you posted, but also that theoretically he could change it. And people think that's crazy, but you look at what happened with Reddit, and the fact that the CEO of Reddit actually went in and changed database entries to change posts to make people look like fools, and that came out, and we're like, what? And you tell this to some people today, and they've never heard of this, and it's a very political thing because it happened on the Donald, on the Trump subreddit, which is pretty well quarantined and almost it's extremely censored and everything now. It's really crazy, very interesting that happened to top level, and they're really, really funny stories and mind-blowing stories about what happened in the past 5 years on that subreddit. So next up, a hairdresser in Texas, no less, right? In Dallas County, I guess it's Dallas, that was jailed for opening during the lockdown and refusing to say sorry. So I think a $7,000 fine and a 7-day jail sentence with no bail. It's crazy. It's like, what would you do? I mean, he's like, I think it'd probably be worth not apologizing. And then hopefully they didn't take down their own video. But Plandemic, and I've not gotten to watch this yet. I keep having people tell me to watch it. So we need to go watch it. YouTube, obviously it's a Streisand effect, right? I mean, YouTube's pulling down anytime somebody posts it over there. So that means I should watch it, right? That's the whole, that, by the way, is the whole reasons for anyone out there who wants to hate me for political reasons on Twitter. The only reason that I talk about, am a fan of, voted for, and joined Trump is because Reddit was censoring that subreddit. And it's like, I saw, and I thought, well, why? So I need to go look at this. And I went and looked at it, and it was freaking hilarious, that subreddit. And, they basically got me. So it's an interesting thing. That's what happens. So, be careful about who you troll and why, because it's like, well, I'm going to go look at that then. Anyway, then I think this is this might be the last coronavirus thing that was really interesting. If you haven't seen this, and it has been posted by notorious entities as well, but I did see this before it was posted by him or them. But one way or another, the president of Tanzania brought in coronavirus testing kits. Wanted to do some testing themselves, some samples. So they tested a goat and a pawpaw fruit, sent the tests off, and they both came back positive. And you're like thinking, okay, I mean, it's like, I wish they would have done it on, a better sampling of fruits and farm animals so that we could say, but it's like, this is it's not very likely. I mean, even with Chinese tests, Chinese tests, maybe you could have 100% error rate, but or false positive. But anyway, interesting, right? Very interesting what that means. Okay. So next thing on our agenda before we get into our guests is that this was a good opportunity. Bully, who we all know and love in crypto Twitter, and I think a lot of people troll him for his past fan status with dragons. That, how do I say this? He posted, what's going on in crypto space? What are you working on? I mean, this is a really good question for a great deal of the crypto projects out there, because a lot of them really are working, and it tends to be that the ones that are really doing things and really building things don't get a lot of push out there, don't cut through the noise, right? Whereas the ones that are maybe not doing too much or doing nothing, are the ones that you hear about, the ones that get pumped a lot, the ones that have literal how do I want to say this, coordinated I guess you could call it, I hate to use the word, but AstroTurf style, fake organic communications on Twitter and such. So one way or another, as a long intro there, we took it as an opportunity to say, okay, well, gosh, let's say what we've been working on. And I knew I'd forget some stuff, so I brought it to some of our other people, and they actually reminded me, oh yeah, I wouldn't even thought to mention that. But so of course we're working on Den. Den has lore and lot that'll be released sometime relatively soon, with the lair community lair creation process starting soon thereafter. We just added an embedded reputation system to cut down on trolling and other nefarious activity within your lair, and a lot of other really interesting pieces coming there. People should probably even be watching. I'll pop over there in a minute. The live stream there. We can see how far behind the stream is from our recording. Then Eternal. We're actually refitting a bunch of the UI to make it more understandable, because some of it's relatively abstract. How we secure transactions into all of the interchains, Bitcoin, Ethereum Classic, Binance. So and we're building in some features that will be more premium focused. We're working with a group called ENA, that is Eternal News Archive, that was basically built by a bunch of community members that understood the value of Eternal for working against censorship. And they are basically building out a number of information bots and things that they are, I should say, archival bots. They're basically pulling things from different streams to archive it onto Den for discussion, and to archive it onto Eternal for proof. So there's a bunch of really interesting stuff going on there, and they have a general layer, but then they have a whole bunch related to politics or tech or other items. We are also working on 3 separate projects related to COVID. One of them we're waiting to hear back, because we've delivered, but they've been so busy, and they're how do I say this? They are a public sector customer. And then there are 2 others that are commercial, related to tests that we're just starting on. I think one is going to be announced today. I don't know the absolute timing and everything around that, though. So we'll announce it when it's out. And then we have Rainmaker. So we have JD on at the end of the show here today to talk about Rainmaker and what it is and what we're doing with them and what's coming. Dragon Factor. We've been building out a more of a productized consumer front end, both for white labeling, so people can embed it in their own mobile apps and websites, and also so that we can use it wherever we want in a more general way. And that's moving along really well. We just struck a really amazing partnership with a group that's going to roll out something that'll be really interesting. So that's coming. Provably fair contest system. This isn't finalized, but we have the beginnings of, and this is more I want to talk about right here. There's a lot to this, but basically this is a way that if you have, whether it's casino gaming, whether it's lottery systems, raffles, online giveaways, or if it even were something like the seeding of tournament worlds for esports, that you can prove that the randomness and or the selection or the giveaway itself is fair to anyone in a really transparent way. And this is basically in my opinion, a really good example of the power of blockchain technology itself, and in combination with Bitcoin and Ethereum, and how you can leverage the technology to do something real world that you can't do any other way. So that's a really powerful thing. And then open source money. Again, it'll be one of the first Rainmaker projects, and we'll talk about that later in the show. We have the date for it and some of the details. So that is that. So now I'm going to bring on our first guest. This is Ty, Tytan
Hello, everyone.
From Podcast of the Same, and from you have YouTube channel too, right? So
yeah,
go ahead.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I stopped doing YouTube videos actually because as you were speaking about before, like the censorship that was going on YouTube. If I start doing videos again, I'll probably start doing them on BitChute or something, or maybe obviously the platform that you guys are going to come up with soon. Yeah, my name is Ty Blackard. I'm the COO of Fomo Hunt, and I guess I could just get into an intro about my journey into blockchain, and then talk about Fomo Hunt a little bit. So, oh man, it starts out May of 2018. Well, actually, really before that, 2017 literally at the top, like November. A friend of mine was talking about Litecoin on Twitter, and I got interested in what that was. I'd never heard of it before. Of course, I heard about Bitcoin. So I decided to kind of do a little bit of research on it, and then discovered, that there was this whole cryptocurrency industry. Fast forward to May of 2018, I decided to really dive into cryptocurrency and blockchain simply because I didn't have a very good understanding of it. And so, getting into that, I started to make a brand around this, and I had been doing, creative content for a very long time. I mean, this is pretty much what I've done my whole life. Years ago, I was doing like Minecraft videos, making like $10,000 in high school, making Minecraft videos.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, on YouTube. So that was fun. It was fun to kind of show off, I guess, a little bit to some friends your AdSense account, and show like, oh, I just made $2,000 this month, on a Minecraft video.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So that was like my beginning into YouTube and everything, and I kind of transitioned all of that into crypto because I didn't really understand anything about it, so I wanted to learn myself and then teach others as well. So I started in doing that, and then fast forward to March of 2019. I actually had the opportunity to travel to Asia a little bit before, I guess, back in 2018 of November. I actually quit my job and decided to pack up or get ready for a long trip to Asia. I thought I was going to live there for quite a time, but anyways, ended up leaving in March of 2019, and I spent time all over Asia, and actually it's funny because I always mention this story. I actually met Digital Lawrence. Some of you guys are familiar with Digital Lawrence. I met him in Santa Monica because of a canceled flight, which was obviously not my intention. I was supposed to go directly to the Philippines, but I had a canceled flight, so I had to stay in Hollywood, and I ended up meeting up with Digital Lawrence, and that was kind of like the beginning of our journey with Fomo Hunt. So really cool little thing there. That was kind of unexpected. So then, fast forward, I spent a lot of time in Asia, getting to know a lot of people in the blockchain industry. I went to, conferences in Singapore, Korea, Japan, and then met some of our partners in Malaysia. And then, throughout all that time, I spent a lot of time making videos for Dragonchain. Some of you guys may have seen some of those videos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I would say those were, especially at that time, those were surprisingly in depth, right? Everything else that was out there was very surface level. They didn't dig in deep. They would ask questions like, "What? Why? That's out there. It should be known." Right? And it was really frustrating for us. But it looked like you had actually dived in, because it sounded like you actually hit every one of the points in the architecture. Was like, man, this dude, this guy is, you actually captured everything. So I'm like, they were really good videos.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. I wasn't sure, like I said, I was trying to understand, blockchain and really kind of grasp it. And by the way, I didn't even mention, years before, I quit my job, I actually ran an IT company. So I had a little bit of an understanding of, architecture and servers and yada, yada. So I had that knowledge. But yeah, so I was hoping that those videos were in depth, and I was hoping that I wasn't, covering things wrongly or putting out misinformation. So I appreciate that. I didn't really know that they were that good. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So, so actually the second video I actually made in the Philippines, and then, fast forward some time, I finally came back, to the States. And of course I've been working on Fomo Hunt the whole time in Asia and the whole time I've been back. And then, that's kind of like my intro into blockchain and everything. And then, what we're working on in Fomo Hunt is like, wealth tech. So the big thing for us is what we discovered. By the way, we actually pivoted from events. Thank God, because obviously events ain't really popping right now. So we made a good pivot. But yeah, so we pivoted into to wealth tech. We wanted to give people more data and insights on their portfolio management, performance, as well as some assistance with robo-advising. So I can't really put it all together right now because it would just kind of release too much information. But essentially, we're working on wealth tech, trying to make things, make data and insights more accessible across all asset classes. So that's kind of a quick rundown of me and Fomo Hunt. So
nice. That's really good. All right. And we can also talk about Bitcoin the Bitcoin halving, right? So I've been through all of them so far because I started in 2010. So I was
so you're a veteran
enough to witness the first, and it is one of the things that was most obviously unique and interesting to me, that the consensus itself is most important. Yep. Because without the consensus, you wouldn't be able to have the assurance, or as a normal person, what's the likelihood that the miners will actually stop, not just change the code and start producing more Bitcoin than they're supposed to. And this is a really, really interesting aspect about it. And I think Bitcoin Network has only gone down a couple of times. I witnessed those as well, and mostly interfaced through Reddit, watching stuff go down. And, I'm busy in my own world doing my own business. But that was pretty remarkable that happened. And, everybody watching this will know, but it is useful when you talk to people who are new to the technology to try not to pin it down into necessarily pure fintech, but in something that they understand, that there's a small amount of gold, right? If it's not debunked, I mean that there is only enough gold in the entire world to fill an Olympic-sized swimming pool, right? It's very rare, and yet there have been points in history where cultures collide, and you have the Spanish galleons come back from the New World with tons and tons of gold that they traded their beads for and whatever else, and they take it into Europe and it crashes the market, right? Radical, interesting stuff that theoretically somebody could find a mine somewhere that would produce so much or
an asteroid.
He finds an asteroid with gold and platinum on it that it pays for the actual journey. I don't know, but either way, those are very unpredictable things. And you can put a certain amount of risk on it, but there's also a lot of hidden gold. There's a lot of gold that you don't know. There's a lot of people who hold gold in paper, that they don't have it in their safe and they don't really have it, right?
They don't really own it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of like if you own the keys to your, Mt. Gox account, that, it doesn't really matter. There's tons and tons of fraud
Exactly.
in the traditional financial markets as well, especially worldwide, right?
Right.
Yet with this, the fact that you can actually say, here's how much supply will be produced every 10 minutes for, whatever point in time in the future.
Yep.
And you don't know fees. Like, we don't know what happens when we get in, in I don't know how many years, but when it gets so low that fees will overtake mining, that will be that's probably the biggest test. And the problem, we could get into politics here. I try to stay away from Bitcoin politics because I have enough trolls in Dragonchain politics already.
I want some more.
Really? Well,
Yeah.
and we could go back to 20. I'm going to get the dates wrong, so apologies, but like 2013, somewhere around there, where you had the big block, and you had Bitcoin Unlimited, and you had all of these other, I forget half the names, but I just recently saw there's a post in the cryptocurrency layer that I put in there from a 4chan thread that is really interesting, because with anonymity, people are saying things that they would never say on Twitter, and really, really interesting stuff. But I have a concern that the fees overtaking mining might break it, because if it's digital gold, you're not going to have a lot of movement. So why am I going to mine? If it's digital cash, and it scales, then there's a ton of money there in the processing itself, just moving the money around. That I don't care if I get mining fees anymore, or mining. That's an interesting thing, and I wonder how that will play out. But anyway.
That is interesting. I actually, I think I briefly touched on a video like way back. Eventually what's going to happen is, I mean, obviously, the year 2140 is when Bitcoin's supposed to run out, or not run out, but reach max supply. But then at that point, the miners will have to rely specifically on transaction fees. And then how does that work?
Yeah,
I guess it works because by then we're assuming Bitcoin is going to be so expensive that the transaction fees themselves, even if it's a small amount of Bitcoin, it's still going to be worth a lot.
Right. Mm-hmm. And there is, by the way, the other angle on this is the inflation that does occur. Or the deflation that does occur.
Yeah.
So we know inflation is dropping down. Will be zero, like you said, 2140 approximate. But will be such a small number in just a few years that it'll be not that important to the value. But deflation is interesting because any lost keys, if the Bitcoin that Satoshi originally mined actually is dead, if it can't move, that's huge, because then there are, and I think most estimates are that there are a decent number, less than 21 million Bitcoin, because so much has been lost. And we had a system that we never built, because frankly we got too bogged down with BS in the crypto world. That we have and I've talked about it a little bit out there, but a way to do a purely constant economy where staking brings back dead coins. So you would have a set number, and if you don't stake and people lose coins, you don't get them. But you would have a really balanced economy, because the security would be provided by people trying to stake for lost coins, which is countered by other people staking for lost coins.
That's interesting.
If everyone's staking, then you get nothing, but you do lose a tiny bit.
Yeah.
And in that way, you can bring back, if somebody threw their phone in the lake and had millions of tokens, that they would come back to the people that are providing security. Anyway,
I want to actually touch on the inflation rate, or rather deflation rate, as well. So, and I talk about this quite a lot on my Twitter, and I don't think people really quite get it yet. Maybe they don't understand the importance of this halving. But the main importance that I can see from this halving in particular is that the inflation rate for Bitcoin will actually drop from about 3.9, I think somewhere in that range, to about 1.8 which is less than the average central bank target inflation rate, or sorry, either interest rate or inflation rate, one of those two. Which is obviously a big deal, because if that average target is, across the board, and that by the way, there's obviously higher inflation rates, like 4%, sometimes 7%, something ridiculous depending on which central bank. But that's a really, really big deal, especially for the United States, because eventually they're going to try to get back to that target with interest rates as well. So that's this is a really, really, really big halving in that region in particular. So
right, and the timing, perfect storm around the crypto world hopefully thawing. Right, it's been in a deep freeze for years
hibernation
now, and it's coming out of that. You have an international crisis. You have the first ever 50-state, near a 50-state lockdown, but either way, disaster, declared disaster, and those things tend to affect price anyway as well. But a lot of times it's just people coming to the understanding this is a real thing. I should pay attention to this. I see all this crazy stuff's going on in the world, and I don't trust the authorities anymore.
Right.
So, and there is I've not had a chance to look into this yet, but we are doing some stuff with Eternal, and so I passed this to our guys on hash rate. That with Eternal we do track what the best hash rate metrics we can on Bitcoin and Ethereum. We aren't right now tracking Ethereum Classic or Binance or Neo for that matter on any of the similar. I mean, Neo's staked and whatnot, so it wouldn't be the same, of course. But but tracking the security applied, so that when you see your proof report, so you see here's a tweet or here's a document that Ty posted for an announcement, that anybody can hand it to anyone else and prove that it hasn't been modified, because there has been this much hash power. And right now, the issue, we had an issue with showing people that, okay, this is aggregated security. So it's the hash power of Bitcoin and Ethereum Classic and the staking power of Neo and Binance, that all of these things together are securing your info. And yet, when you look at, I can't even remember what I can't remember what the it's of course is not exahashes. It's not. I can't remember.
Terahashes?
No, it's radically higher. It's something never used in anywhere else.
Okay.
It is multiple orders of magnitude more than international debt. Okay? So in hash power, right? So that's how many hash. So it's
right.
It's the Bitcoin's the largest computing concern on Earth, far and away.
On its own.
Yeah, on its own, and when you combine it to the others, it's crazy. So and we do that so that we have variety and everything else. But what we're going to do is apply an estimated dollar figure to it, because when you get into these high numbers, people don't understand. There's no way to clearly.
People don't even understand terahashes. What makes us think they're going to understand, whatever's next.
Right. And so there's some, interesting things coming out. And you had mentioned before we started about, so the last thing we'll talk about here is Bitcoin supply in exchanges.
Right.
And something I hadn't been paying attention to at all, but makes, really clear sense to start watching. And so this graphic is what? This is
basically, so the white line here is the supply on exchanges. And of course, the green line is the price. So as we see the price going up, we can actually see, this is obviously the big drop is Black Thursday. That's when, all hell broke loose and people were freaking out. But we can basically see that people are taking their Bitcoin off exchanges as if they're just trying to hoard their Bitcoin as not to sell. So basically you have to ask yourself, okay, well, we see the price going up, and if people are taking their Bitcoin off exchanges, who's selling? Yeah. And who can sell? So that's kind of what this chart is showing. That's really, really interesting. So it's just kind of flattening off. And I don't really expect to see a large influx of Bitcoin being thrown back on exchanges. So then the next question is like, is it going to be Bitcoin miners that start offloading their Bitcoin? Because it certainly isn't retail.
Mhm.
So
I'm hoping they at least plan and weather whatever they need to at a loss for the near term. And I'm assuming the big ones already have all that cooked in. But yeah, to basically wait until the price, because if anything, even if it isn't people hoarding, it can seriously be okay. Um, a lot of info happening, and then people just going and drying out, anywhere that they can get it wherever they are in the world.
right.
Which means there's going to be no supply, which should the price should. So anyway,
Yeah.
excellent. All right. Okay. So now we're going to bring in JD. So JD is a longtime partner of Dragonchain. We've been working together since what? Gosh, 18 at least, early 18.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, early 18. Yep.
And so we basically have embarked on a number of different projects with JD. One of which obviously is open source money, what's coming out. So JD, give a quick background and then tell me what thing you'd want to talk about first.
Yeah, so you want a quick background on me first to start, or
Sure.
Yeah, so I guess the Reader's Digest version is started off in entertainment, more on as a creative, but also got into the finance side and independent film and raising capital for independent movies. Then did help to raise money for an entertainment fund, and also helped to fund a Broadway play called Rock of Ages. That was pretty successful. Around 2012, 2013. Me and a small team did a documentary called Sirius that we crowdfunded the entire thing. It was the most successful crowdfund for a doc in history until I think like 3 or 4 years ago. The sequel to that documentary surpassed it. But that was a really amazing experience and kind of opened my eyes to the power of the crowd and what we can do with the internet. And so, especially in the media space where there's been a rapid adoption at like the grassroots level, but at the higher level in terms of studios and distribution, it's been slow. It's been slower. Now it's obviously accelerated, and coronavirus has accelerated a lot of this stuff, a lot of the adoption of these systems rapidly. So we crowdfunded the entire budget was serious, but the cooler part I felt was we released it 11 months later after we launched the crowdfund, subtitled in 17 languages, and we did over $1 million in direct-to-consumer sales. And so, and that's again our own transactional VOD release in 2013 on a movie. It was pretty early days, and so what was exciting to me is that was all zero marketing budget. So that meant that 100% of the the marketing was driven by word of mouth. It was driven by community engagement. It was driven by our own community of fans. So I realized, I was like, okay, well, there's got to be some way we can create a system that would automate that and help that same phenomena scale. And so I spent, I guess after that, it took about 5-6 years to first discover the world of blockchain and crypto, which was kind of happened. I had been around Sirius at the time of Sirius. Actually, someone tried to get me to buy some Bitcoin. It was like 10,000 Bitcoin for $1,000 or something. Now, like everyone was like, and my gut was screaming to do it. And I told the guy, I was like, I really want to do this, but I don't understand it. But I was like, I feel like it's going to be successful. That's all I can tell you about Bitcoin, and obviously it was. But I was having dinner with a friend of mine who's a big marketing guy and tech guy in LA, and we were talking about the Atari movie, which is one of our kind of flagship projects for our company, Vision Tree. And it's the story of Nolan Bushnell, who's the founder of Atari. It's his official biopic. We're producing it with Leonardo DiCaprio and his production company, Appian Way. And he was like, what are you thinking about with the financing for that? And I was already looking at equity crowdfunding to figure out, okay, is there something we could tap into to replicate what we did with Sirius, to actually incentivize the crowd to help us promote the film and align the community's interests with the interests of the project? And I was looking at a lot. I was talking to WeFunder and some different places, and it's just in general, like the space just didn't seem to have like what we were looking for. And he said, well, have you thought about doing an ICO to fund the movie? And so we looked it up, and I was like, well, what's an ICO? And I didn't really know anything about ICOs. And it was the day the CEO of Mozilla raised $30 million in 30 seconds. So I turned to him, I'm like, this is crowdfunding on steroids. Obviously, I was hooked at that point, and it just took me down the rabbit hole. Ended up connecting with Joe through some mutual friends as we were making our, or I was kind of on my journey to discover the whole space. And obviously we've been able to do some really cool stuff together. And it's cool. Open source money, it started off like a lot of, I think, projects that end up being great. Like, you don't necessarily go into it knowing what it's going to be, but you just start with like the intention that you want to do something cool and different and get a message out that you're passionate about. And and I saw in Joe and in Dragonchain that there was an amazing story happening that I felt like people weren't seeing and weren't understanding. And in general in the space, I felt like the mainstream, right about the time, like I came in, I guess it would be like spring of 17, really like started getting deeper and deeper. And Joe and I met in like late 17, or actually very early 18. So right after you guys did the ICO, and right after the all-time high, or right around the all-time high of Bitcoin. And when I was looking at was, as I saw, because I was just watching the mainstream media, and as someone who's been passionate about politics, I've always kind of been acutely aware of how the media can kind of shift things, from one direction or another, whatever, depending on whatever the agenda is. And so I clearly saw that there, to me, seemed to be a coordinated effort by the media to scare people, to push them push them away from crypto. And I was like frustrated by it, because again, for me, my passion's always been to make as much positive impact in the world as I can with my life. And this is one of the first things I've found that has a huge potential to revolutionize so many things on the planet in a positive way, to really empower humanity and to execute what I call like the solution revolution, which is us in a decentralized way, moving forward and solving some of the world's greatest problems. And I still believe that. And I still believe blockchain is the fabric that is gonna be the foundation for these new systems to be built on, that are gonna scale in a decentralized way, in the way we need them to. So, I was like looking at, well, what can I do? What can I contribute? Well, I know how to, produce media on a high level. And so it was just a natural fit. And Joe was looking to, get his story out there. And so we just started filming stuff, and it kind of organically over time, grew into what it's become. And we're very excited and fortunate even to get it out on, on Discovery Science. Is like, it was a battle. It wasn't like an easy thing, and we'll talk more about that later. But it wasn't like we went to a lot of different places and there was interest, but there was, to me, I saw that there was some censorship happening at the highest levels of the media world, in terms of not people being scared to push out content that was positive or that was friendly about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. So I definitely encountered that with open source money. So we're excited about that one. But in connection with that, and in connection with Atari, we originally created a project, and Dragonchain was an early partner, called Coin. And over time, and again, the simple concept of Coin, which now has evolved and a bit more in the flagship app or platform that's launching in the Coin ecosystem, is an app called Rainmaker. So essentially the idea was, how do we incentivize users to, be rewarded properly for the value they're creating for the projects or companies that they promote, and that they talk about in social media and online. It was a really simple concept, again, based on what I learned from Sirius, that we had this community of fans and we were able to incentivize them in certain ways during the release of the film. But I still felt like there was more that could be done to, fractionalize that, empower it, in a certain way. So Rainmaker is, the expression of that concept. And there, Joe's brought up the AtariMovie.co page, and that's, around Atari, we were like, let's, with the film we're doing at DiCaprio, we said, let's make this one of the first films, or the first big film that takes this concept of blockchain and fractional ownership and finds a way to explore it in whole new ways, and how we're rewarding the community, incentivizing the community to promote and help drive the success of the project. So we made announcements about that about 2 years ago. Went down the path. We've got some amazing partners on that side. T0. Also, I've been close to a lot of different people in the space just in my travels. Even the guys at Polymath and Trevor, I really love those guys. And I really actually Patrick Byrne, who no longer is with T0 and Overstock, unfortunately, and how that all went down to me was kind of disgusting. But because I really think he's a pioneer and one of the leaders in the space. So he's someone that was one of those early influences. So coming back to Rainmaker, we got on board earlier this year, and Dragonchain really picked it up and really got into hands-on development with us. We entered into a contract for them to build out the platform, both the app and tie in the back end to the Dragonchain blockchain, which we're really excited about. And that's one of those things. We were there, we're there actually filming Joe and seeing it progress and seeing it mature. And when we were there, when they did the 24-hour performance demo, and I'm sitting there like, why are we not? Whatever we're building should be on this system, because to me, this looks like it's superior to everything else that's out there, especially for what we want to use it for. We need something that's highly scalable, but yet also leverages some of the unique features of blockchain. And I feel like the Dragonchain blockchain is perfect for it. So we got to work with them, working on the app and the platform, and now we're just actually 2 weeks from today, we'll have the closed beta launch around May 21st, and then we'll be coming out with the public launch in June. So depending on kind of the normal process and bug squashing and other stuff that happens as we go through that process, that's where we're at. And open source money will actually be the first. Our Atari movie will be on there too, and we'll be driving promotion of that. But open source money will really be the focus, because it's coming out on Discovery Science in the summer. We actually got an announcement that will be coming out here in a few weeks. That'll be the official date, and some trailer and other stuff dropping. So Rainmaker will be, a big central piece of the promotion of that TV series. And my hope is that we can galvanize the crypto and blockchain community to come in and to help us promote this show, to get as many people to watch it, because that's the kind of thing it's a simple signal to send to a network. For them, it's all about ratings, which is how they reward advertisers, which is what feeds their bottom line. So if we can show them that a show on this space has interest and has viewers, then what's going to happen is it's going to drive the advertisers to say, well, we want more of whatever that was. And so our goal is, the time slot that we're in, we're hoping to just crush the Nielsen ratings of what normally happens in that window, and it'll send a strong signal to our partner there that this is the type of content that you want. You want to bring more of into your various networks. So that's where it's at. Rainmaker will be again closed beta in a couple weeks, live launch in June. People can sign up if you go to rainmaker.com. It's Rainmaker with 2 eyes, and that's kind of a unique thing that we've latched onto branding wise. The 2 eyes, just in case people wonder, it represents that peer-to-peer transaction. It represents that value, that relationship of that peer-to-peer connection. And we feel like even in the world of Bitcoin or in crypto, that's really we're actually even just in general in the economy of the planet, we feel like that human connection is where the wealth is. Like that's where the real power is. So, Coin has 2 eyes, Rainmaker has 2 eyes. That's the only way we were able to get the .com to work out.
That is, by the way, I mean, at least in my opinion, when I saw what was happening in 2017, 2018, and we started working together, and as all the technology was coming, out, and we're offering our side of it. We're focused on enterprise and startup, business integration. We're focused on trying to get the technology usable, and not just usable in terms of I can pop up a node. I mean, Amazon's doing that. Microsoft's doing that. That is obviously valuable, right? But it's not something that is meaningful in a way that how does a business understand where they could use it, because it isn't just payments. How do they actually integrate, right? Especially with privacy, and you're opening up basically decentralized tech with blockchain, right as you're also realizing that all of the powers that be have been using and abusing our private info for decades, and people are starting to counter that. So it's like, just as this new tech comes, it is at least seemingly counterintuitive, because the very things that it provides are the things that people no longer want, because they've seen what it causes. And so we were there to try to say, okay, you don't have to be dogmatic about it. You don't have to be, because most businesses, there is no real value in their entire operations being totally decentralized.
Right.
But there are certain things that they do that should be and could be transparent and open, right? So a bunch of that stuff was coming together at that time. And when you're mentioning, the peer-to-peer and the humans are the real value and all, and that's absolutely true, because when you saw what happened, when not only was it 2017 hard to do, hard to learn, hard to not screw up and lose a ton of money, people were still doing it, and there was the tremendous amount of money and a value that was created in that, both in technology, but also this is, in my opinion, although it is regulated, and I have to be careful what I say, right? They totally screwed up, at least so far. I still think it's you can't stop the tech, so it will still happen. But when we saw, I was around in early internet. In fact, I graduated college before normal access to internet was available. I mean, you might have had AOL or CompuServe, right? But and 12 and 2400 baud modems. That's what I would use, and yet internet was pretty much non-existent until I pulled down Trumpet Windsock and NCSA Mosaic was the browser. It's like, it was remarkable. It was crazy, and it's like you had all these other protocols. You had Gopher, you had Finger, you had all these other things that you could do with the internet, but the browser was the thing, the web. And so the U.S. government pretty much said, oh, you know what? Let's stand back. Let's leave it alone. Let's see what happens. Let's let it develop. Let's, in fact, put in place measures that will help. Let's not tax it, because that would be ridiculous when it's in its infancy. Would be ridiculously expensive for all these startups to figure out. And the only thing that I can in difference between that and this industry is that very much back then it was all very academic and engineering based. It was all, the telcos were directly involved, which are very much engineering cultures. The finance people, stayed out of it. There was, they didn't want payments, all of that. And somehow that happened. Whereas now, and probably because, number one, there's finance involved, that the powers that be that already have huge lobbying arms really set out. They did stuff with Bitcoin that I would have never seen happening in the early days. We talked about the big block, I should say block size debate. That a lot of that stuff happened, and you have to wonder, was it because at the time, a few tens of millions or maybe even $100 million would totally own Bitcoin, right? I mean, they would be able to basically buy off all of the powers that be, get them to do whatever they want. There was obviously a lot of censorship that happened if you go back to what happened on Reddit. And so you think about that, and then the VCs that after, I think that's what really set us into the crypto winter, was that the VCs saw that they were losing their shirt, that they were not raising as much as they had been. And they saw that crypto was through the roof, right? And you had these, people that were legitimate and understandably vetted as legitimate, like you mentioned, the bat sale, that they were raising tremendous sums very quickly. And then, you had a lot of people that were leveraging the game theory to raise more than they probably should and stuff like that. But at the same time, in my opinion, it's liberty. And I've said this over and over again, and this directly relates to the tech. This isn't even something talking about the speculation, that the tech itself means that, and we did this even at Disney, the tech means that you can incentivize people in ways that they can, on their own trust. They don't have to worry, oh, what are these points you're giving me? Are they going to go away? It's like, well, no, they're on chain. You can prove them at any point, and you can have the legal agreements that those points mean for redemption on chain as well. So now you can build a real loyalty system. It's not a half-assed Visa card that has the airline's logo on it that I'm getting more points for, right? That they're making money there, but that's not a loyalty system. That's basically saying, even though I've flown your airline for 20 years, I'm not getting anywhere near the benefits of this dude just because he's hacking the system, and he gets your new card and he applies for whatever else and gets more points. And so you're basically being loyal to someone who's, enriching Visa and not really using your airline. So it's totally messed up. So anyway, it's the fact that a market of humans is far more valuable, in my opinion, than AI, machine learning, or any of this. And it's provably so, because even with everything that went down with the regulators in the US and elsewhere, and with the SEC and everything else, that even with them pushing down the market, and it's obvious to everyone that they did, and whether that's in line with their mission or not is a question, but Bitcoin, because it had already gotten far enough along, and some of the other bigger hash power chains are provably so valuable. And it is all because of the consensus mechanism that is embedded in software.
It's time.
It's time, and it's basically saying, what Satoshi did that was most remarkable wasn't, in my opinion, the protection against a double spend. That was the result. That was basically the byproduct that is marketed and used for the purposes, the utility purpose of Bitcoin, whether it's gold or cash, whatever you want to call it. That the encapsulation of time, the ability to take 2 points in time and measurably prove that transactions happened between those 2 points in time, meant that you could do the double spend check, meant that you could have scarcity in what are essentially virtual tokens. And obviously the crypto and everything else plugged in, and some pretty unique, interesting angles on, and some people don't know why he chose to do some certain things with the signing and everything else. But obviously it was brilliant, but that's the magic. And it's all a marketplace encoded into software that in Bitcoin's case is primarily rewarding people to mine, people to keep checking everyone else's transactions, and secondarily incentivizing people to hold those coins, which is directly related to the value of mining. That is, if there is mining value, then there is holding value, and if there's holding value, there's mining value. It's beautiful, right? And it's all a little marketplace. And then there are further marketplaces around them that are more traditional, exchanges and whatnot.
Do you think that when Satoshi made Bitcoin, she organization, whatever Satoshi is, do you think that they intended for people to hold on to Bitcoin, knowing that obviously the way they designed it, it would have to become more valuable, based on the deflation, based on the supply, even though they were hoping it would become a peer-to-peer cash. Obviously, nobody's really using it like that right now. Now, obviously what I believe is that once we see a flattening out of Bitcoin, I think it'll become more of a foundation, and obviously people will be able to use it like that. And I think that at some point, obviously, the price of Bitcoin is going to be much less volatile, encouraging people to spend that Bitcoin. But do you think that they may be intended for it to be like this in the beginning stages? I mean, it's only been 11 years.
I think, and I can't remember. I mean, there are enough quotes you could probably delve deeper in, but in the very least, you can say that it was related directly to what was happening with central banks and printing tons and tons of money, and the financial crisis that occurs both before and after. This was basically, if anything, it was demonstrating here's how money should be.
Right.
And if we had a gold standard, it's closer to what you want, but Bitcoin is probably way closer to what you would want. It's a very pure model, and whether the halving is the best model or not, I mean, that likely it's pretty much had to be a guess, an educated guess of okay.
Pretty good guess.
We need enough to get some basically fluid Bitcoin. There's enough out there, and then we're going to keep ratcheting it up, because that's what it is. It's like, okay, you thought Bitcoin was scarce, just wait for a couple.
Wait.
And it's gonna, and people who are holding understand more today. And I had a theory for a while that was kind of hard, a little abstract, but it's if you think about it in this way, that I remember when my first coins were bought at like $2, right? And I didn't buy enough. I was buying them for engineering, right? I was a nerd software guy trying to figure out, okay, how does this work? How can you use it? What are the details around it? How can I code with it? What can I do? And so I bought a little bit. I did not buy what I should have, right? Now I think, but at the same time, you never knew. This could have been nothing. And when I saw it, and all the people I worked with, that was our goal. Everybody had to buy and or mine Bitcoin and get them onto their local machine, right? That was you had a week to do it. And we didn't all quite meet in time, but one way or another, how do I say this? We saw it go up to like 14, I think, first, and they're like, oh my gosh, look at this! This is crazy, And then it dropped, and it's like, then I just stopped. I was out shopping once and saw when it dropped, and I said, I just signed off. It's like, okay, whatever. It won't. And then lo and behold, later it hits 30. I'm like, oh my gosh, And months later hits 30, and then it crashes again. And I think a lot of it is that weak hands end up not being able to take that. It's depending upon how you look at it as an investment or whatever, it's really hard to take those crashes, right?
It's emotional,
very emotional. And so I think a lot of it is that as it goes, you're going to have people that are at least for a few cycles, probably, let's say Peter Schiff. I don't know what he'll do, right? But imagine if in 2 or 3 cycles he's finally said, okay, screw it, I'll join them. And because I think that you have a fringe that will hate it because they lost money.
Yep.
And that's with any crypto, not just Bitcoin. But then you have people that didn't take part and saw, and was like, holy crap, I should have done that. And then, wow, here's a new chance. And some of you'll have a split of those that think, well, it's not low enough, because when I first saw it, it was only at 2,000, and or whatever. And so you'll have those people. But I think in time, it just ends up pulling in, and a lot of it, like with Dragonchain, with our time system, what used to be DDSS, it ends up being a way to pull people in, to not have the speculation, to not just be in it, to it's a very philosophical thing. So, and when I start tweeting about liberty and anti-censorship and anti what do I say, despot, right? If we're talking about China and stuff, sometimes people don't like it, and I'm like, well, the whole thing's about liberty. This whole thing's about liberty, which means I'm going to say stuff that you won't like.
Yeah,
you're going to say stuff I won't like. It's fine, but And
the beauty of it is that you have the ability to say that. Imagine that you're in China.
Yeah.
Guess what? You don't have the ability to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a big difference.
Yeah. And we've started posting stuff on TikTok, right? I don't have an account because I don't trust it. Same way in our meetings. In fact, both of you guys.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you both about this.
Okay.
Zoom, right?
Yeah.
So with Zoom, you're talking about, and I can't put it on my systems because I'm too security conscious, and I'm not radical. I know people who have passphrases that are literally take them 30 seconds to type, right?
Yeah.
It's like I would never be able to remember that. I use other methods, but I would never install Zoom after I found out what that was. I haven't had enough other issues with people hacking our systems that I'm like, okay, I'm not going to do that. So I had my Twitter account hacked about 2 weeks ago. I don't know if you guys saw this. They posted, oddly enough, two ads. They posted 2 ads. And I'm like, what? Somebody tells me, and
a waste of that.
I realized I hadn't changed my password on Twitter since on my personal account. On Dragonchain, it's extremely tight.
Right.
I say that. On my account, I hadn't changed my password since probably 2009, 2010, something like that. And so, because when I went in and saw what the password was, like, oh my gosh, right? Obviously, they hacked it. So
they could have asked for hey, send Dragonchain here, and you'll get 3 back.
Yeah, like in the old days, right?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
I guess crypto winter, that's not possible. That's our best hedge. Against BitConnect and hacks or scams that the crypto winter. So thank you, government. So
JD,
anyway,
what do you think about Zoom, JD?
Well, I use it when we need to. Joe, I definitely don't use it with my conference calls with Joe anymore. I learned that the hard way. And he's like, I'm not downloading the app, JD. Like phoned in to Zoom. I said, all right, we'll use our Uber conference, which I think actually I was using Zoom some before the pandemic hit, just because I had some other folks introduce it to me, and I found it was easy to use. I mean, in where I'm at, I mean, there's other ways we deal with security and different unconventional style that I have in general. But I don't have an issue with but I'll say this is that about the China and it's not even just China in general. In human history, there's been this battle between authoritarianism and liberalism, right? Which is these competing philosophies, which is authoritarianism thinks that centralized authority should rule over people, and people need that. And liberalism actually believes the opposite. So I think that's something that we definitely delve into in open source money, because it's really a fundamental thing at the heart of this whole space and this whole movement, right? And so I think that, and it's something that and it definitely ties into, I think, the DNA of who Joe is in a big way. It ties into the DNA of the crypto world. And I actually kind of feel like it's one of the things in the years of studying this that I kind of distilled out of it was that's like the thing that the real world or the people that are not in the movement don't understand it, is that like the next 100 or 1,000 years is going to be powered by systems just like the internet, but the internet 3.0, where value is being hard coded into it using blockchain. And those systems will be people build those systems, so their belief in more liberty or more control is going to dictate what kind of system they build. We see the Chinese just launched their blockchain network back in just a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
So, and that's a fully centralized, controlled by the People's Republic of China. And they believe, by the way, the government there believes that that's the best thing for people. They're not doing it because they're saying, because they want to hurt people. They believe that that's the right thing. Now, we might not share that belief, but and again, I think that we'll get into in the future is it's not going to be one system that wins, but there'll be different spheres of influence. So what the U.S. has to decide, and what the government here needs to wake up to, which I think they're slowly are, and I think there's pockets that are waking up, but we have to wake up a lot faster, because right now the Chinese have their ears pinned back, and they're saying we want our system, which we believe is the right system, to be the dominant system of the future. the days of the world, the global reserve currency being the US dollar, and us, being fat and happy, and everyone just buying US dollars because that's what they need to transact, and those days are numbered. How numbered are they? I don't know the answer. But the question becomes then, what will the next thing be? Will a digital dollar or a blockchain system that has a digital dollar baked into it be there? What systems will be those systems? And we do explore that in the doc, but and I know that came off a question about Zoom. How did I get there? Who knows? I'm like Joe. You just like send me, and I just spin.
You skipped over Tiananmen Square. That's what...
well, that is kind of like the, to me, that's one of the things that's most important about the space. And so if we're talking about, we're on your show, and at Dragonchain, you're at the forefront of this industry. And for me, it's like, it is about that battle, right? And it doesn't necessarily, this isn't a battle where there's going to be, armies marching and meeting like in a physical sense in a field, but there is a battle happening for the future of humanity. And basically the front lines, the edge of that frontier right now, the tip of the spear is, more freedom, or more security. And we're in a weird time because the pandemic has all of a sudden, if you would ask people 6 months ago what they'd be willing to accept or deal with, in terms of intrusion by government or surveillance or tracking and tracing and all this kind of stuff, like it's in the US, it's totally shifted right now. So we're kind of at a vulnerable moment. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
Yep. And by the way, JD, what if you can recall, did I want to call the series Forever, right?
Well, I think you wanted to call it at the beginning. You want the first title, you mean?
Yeah. What?
Yeah. Well, you wanted to call it Super Happy Dragon Lucky.
Right.
Yeah. That was.
I had this for the copyright. Anyway, that's funny, right? And we agree. Like the reason we called it what we did, the very particular reasons, strategic and otherwise. So we're really happy with what's going on, but. That's okay. And then let me pull over. This might actually.
I told you that would have been good. The Asian, I felt like the Asian community would have liked it. That was
they would have loved it.
The focus group research we got, because it is very Super Happy Dragon Lucky. It just feels very. It has that kind of feel to it, and that's not me being racist. That's me like talking to a bunch of people when we were looking at focus grouping the what the title should be. So.
Yeah. Right on. Okay. Well. I think we're good. I think that's we probably got to cut off. I have a call at 9:30. Nice. Thanks for coming on, guys. This is the first time we've done multiple people. We've been experimenting with the system, and what we're wanting to do is try to keep a format like this so it's not as boring as if I'm talking for 30 minutes or an hour, right? I mean, it's boring for me, so I can only imagine what it is for others, right? And we are simulcasting onto YouTube, obviously, and into Den, embedded in Den now. In fact, embedded to great depth in Den now, right? And then also on Periscope, and we're throwing this stuff up, business-related stuff in LinkedIn, and so we're trying to figure out how to cut through all the noise because there's too much noise, but. Anyway, keep building stuff. Subscribe. Talk to you guys next week. Thanks a bunch, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Bye.